Hi everybody, thank you for joining me. I am very, very pleased to be able to present to you the new Power to the People box set by John Lennon, Yoko Ono. Thank you very much to the team who sent me this to review and to share with you in advance so that you can decide if this is something that's going to be of interest to you. I'm going to show you everything that's inside this box set. I'm going to talk about what's in here. I have also listened to all of the music that is in this box set, so I've got a full review of that for you in this video, so please stick around for that. Once this is released in October, I'm going to be doing things like live streams, probably do one of my World Cups as well, where we can focus on this box set. But here we go, Power to the People. This is in some ways very different to the previous John Lennon boxes. In other ways, it's very, very similar. I'll explain more about that as I go along. So hopefully you can see here, this is a lenticular cover. This is the 9 CD, 3 Blu-ray box set. Okay, you can see there that the image changes. This, where it says Power to the People along the front, that is on the cellophane. So I'm probably going to keep the cellophane on here. You can see that moving as I move the cellophane. I'm going to get you a real close-up of this sticker here so that you can see what's on there. 9 CDs plus 3 Blu-rays that's got the high-res and Dolby Atmos versions, plus the 5.1 mixers of everything that's in this box. All 121 tracks plus a disc that is like a compilation of some of the items on disc 2 and 3. Again, I'll explain that a little bit more as I go through. So there you go, there is the box there. You'll see Power to the People on the side there. And on the back, there is a full track listing for all 9 CDs. And then those tracks are repeated on the 3 Blu-rays in the formats that I mentioned. Now, unfortunately, because I'm in a room at the moment where that's pretty much empty, everything's in storage at the moment, but I'll be moving house in probably a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks time. I haven't got the other boxes to sit this next to you, to show you how it compares. But I can assure you the height on your shelf is going to be the same. The depth is going to be the same as those previous boxes that they've issued. The width's always going to change depending on how much content is in there. But this will sit really, really nicely alongside the other John Lennon box sets from the past few years, if you have those. So let's get this opened up, show you what's in here. Okay, so I'm going to take all the contents out and show you what's in here. So first of all, just because it's first to hand, there is a poster in here, a large poster, which I'm going to drop on the floor. Let's just get that open for you. Okay, so we've got, this is based on the John and Yoko Plastic Ono band with Elephant's Memory and special guests, the one-to-one concerts at Madison Square Garden, August 1972. So you've got a nice big poster for that there inside. There is this, let's call it a wallet, shall we? That says John and Yoko with Plastic Ono, Elephant's Memory, one-to-one. So this is promoting the concert, and this has got in here some nice little bits of memorabilia, which I'll pull out and show you. So inside here you've got a replica backstage pass for the concert. We've got some replicas of the tickets. Now actually, if you go to the Escape to Newtopia website, if you haven't already, you can generate your own. I think I've got seat C15, if I remember rightly, for my replica tickets there. And there is I think this is no, this isn't a sticker, this is a card. This is a one-to-one, and this must be a replica of something that they had on the day for those one-to-one concerts. So we have that. We also have inside is this book, 204-page book. Really nice embossed print there. These books are always really high quality. There you go, you've got a flight case there from the gig. In here is, it's going to be pretty similar layout to what you've had in the previous books. I will show you in a moment. Before I do that, inside the book, there's more bits and pieces here. You've got a replica postcard, John Lennon, sometime in New York City, 1972 postcard in there. There is another postcard which is sort of more to do with the concert there. I wonder if anybody ever actually writes on these postcards and sends them as postcards. I wouldn't do such a thing. You've got to keep them. And there's loads of stickers in there as well. So you can see all sort of loads of things sort of based on the time period that we're looking at in the early 70s. Okay. You can see they've got the you've got the Nixon and Chairman Mao naked wrestling contest there that was from the original album cover. So loads of bits and pieces inside the book. And then in the book, I'm not going to show you all of this book, but I am going to show you some random pages to give you an idea of the kind of thing that's in here. Let's stand up a little bit just so I can get a better angle for you. So loads of really nice photos in this book. Nice picture of John and Yoko there. Now, here you go. I wanted to show you the contents page, so you get a good look at what's in the contents of this book from there. So you've got a foreword by Yoko, and then it goes into the various different sort of stages of this particular time period that we're looking at. So the various sorts of home jams that are on the discs that I'm going to come to. There's a section all about the Elephant's Memory Band. There's a section about recording the Sometime in New York City album. And then there's information about the relevant things to this box set, like the Evolution mixers, the Elements mixers that we've had in those previous box sets as well. Like I say, I've reviewed all of those. I've got my notes. I'm going to go through all of that. So let's just open up some random pages. You've got a page there all about drummer Jim Keltner, so his memories of being involved in it all. You've got lyrics from the album. We've got some of John's handwritten notes. There's things in here. There's some pretty harrowing photos in here actually about the Attic estate riots. You've got again lots more sort of hand drawn things by John. Sort of him mapping out what the albums were going to be, what the shows were going to be, and everything. So lots of really good information in there. Now, it's worth pointing out as well as this book, a lot of you will know from the previous John Lennon Ultimate Mixers boxes that there's been a separate Thames and Hudson book that's always been released alongside these. There is going to be one of those. I don't think it's coming out until next year. So the book that's with these sets tends to concentrate on the content of what's in the box in terms of the music. Those Thames and Hudson boxes tend to go more into detail about what John and Yoko were doing, what was the times that they were living in and everything that they were getting involved in. So it always comes at it from a different angle. So I'll be looking forward to putting an order in for that when that gets announced. So there's a really good book there inside this. And then we have inside the box this which houses all the discs. So this cover here is a bit like, you know, in the White Album box set from 2018, the CD box set that's got that sort of plastic cover that comes off. Similar thing here. Okay. Hello. So that comes off, and then you're left with two different folders inside. So we'll go to this one first, which I think is the one that has the CDs in. So on the front, it's got a picture of John there, and we've got a picture of John and Yoko on the back. This opens up, and you will see, yes, this is CDs 1 to 6 here. So it's got the full contents of those, of the first 6 CDs, and there they all are in there. Okay. And in the other book, which has got this on the front and a picture of Yoko on the back, again this opens up to show you the contents that's in here. And there's only one of those missing because I've actually just been doing something with one of the discs. So I've actually got, the other one's here. Let me just get this. Here's the other one that slots in there. So this has got the other 3 CDs, so discs 7, 8 and 9, and then it's got the 3 Blu-rays, each of which come in one of these card cases. And like I say, the Blu-rays cover what is on all 6 of the CDs. So it tells us on here that the first 3 CDs are replicated on Blu-ray 1. The second 3 CDs are covered on Blu-ray 2, and the last 3 CDs are on Blu-ray 3. Okay, so that's the contents of the box. What I also got, and I don't think that this will be something that is going to be in the regular boxes that you buy, but I did get this envelope here. It's got that sticker on the back. If I just open this up, this is some quite useful information here. There's a card inside that's got a message from Sean. So if you want to have a read of that at your leisure, you can pause that appropriately. But Sean in this letter goes into detail about the challenges that they had, particularly with the one-to-one concerts, where, you know, saying that they saying that they weren't brilliantly recorded at the time. There was a lot of challenges with how the mics were set up, and in terms of how the room was set up and everything, and big differences between the afternoon and the evening concert, for example. And so they've had quite a lot of challenges in terms of getting those concerts ready for a real good release. Of course, we did get quite a lot of the songs in the Live in New York City CD from 1986. I'll go into how the sound compares here to that particular CD. So some of the stuff has been released before, but there's an awful lot of unreleased material here that was from those particular shows. So I'm going to cover all that. It is worth pointing out, I don't want to particularly dwell on this, but there has been a lot of controversy about what's not in this box. And you probably know this yourselves. So there is a certain song that hasn't been included in this particular box set. And these are difficult times. These are difficult times to negotiate, and I think essentially what it boils down to is you could either have a box set like this that's got 121 songs, but there's a particular song that has been omitted, or you probably wouldn't get this box set at all. If you don't understand why that song can't be re-released as a remix and beautifully shined up and polished and presented as a new version of, then, well, we could talk all day about that, but I'm not going to. What I will say is, for people who are saying that that particular song is being erased from history, no, it isn't. It's still going to be there on streaming. It's still going to be there on all the versions that you've got. There is a new version of the Sometime in New York City album being released as a Japanese SHM CD, an official release along with 6 other John Lennon albums coming out soon that still contains that song. So it's not being banned. It just isn't included in this set as a nice, shiny, brand new look what we've polished up thing. Anyway, I'm not going to talk any more about that because we could argue all day on that point. Let's get into the music that's on here. I've got 12 pages of notes here. I've been through all of this, listened to everything, taken notes, and here's what we've got. So, let's just clarify first of all how this splits out. If you buy this box, you get the what's called the hybrid concert, which is a mixture of, it's like a best of the afternoon and the evening shows of the one-to-one concert. You also get separate discs with the afternoon and the evening concerts. So some people are saying, well, you know, that first disc, do you need that first disc when you're buying a box set like this that's got the full concerts anyway? You decide which you want to listen to. There's definite differences between the afternoon and the evening concert, as I'm going to tell you. But disc 1 is that hybrid concert. It's like a best of. If you want various mistakes that were made on the day edited out, and you just want the best version of each for a lovely concert experience, disc 1 hybrid concert will do you. If you want a bit more of a deeper dive into, you know, the history of what actually happened on those days, disc 2 is the afternoon, disc 3 is the evening concert. So, I will be referring to my notes on this because there's so much to remember. But essentially, you will find that at the start, the track listing is listed as Power to the People. It's not the full Power to the People song. It's essentially a short burst of the sort of, was it a choir? But the choir that sort of sings the Power to the People part. It's a short burst of that to sort of introduce the concert. We've then got, it's difficult to do these exactly in order because the track listing differs in order slightly between afternoon and evening. I'm going to pick out some of the key songs where I think there's things worth mentioning here. So there's a track called Move On Fast. This was a Yoko song. It would appear a few months later on her Approximately Infinite Universe album. So it was an unreleased track at the time when the concert was done. It's a really good rocker. It's almost like a prototype Patti Smith, or even probably more like PJ Harvey. If you like some of PJ Harvey's rockier stuff, there's definite influences here from this song. There's really good rhythm guitar in this as well. That really reminds me of Bob Dylan's Blonde on Blonde period. So if you think of the rhythm guitar that's in something like Stuck Inside a Mobile with the Memphis Blues Again, it's really similar kind of rhythm guitar on that. That stood out to me really noticeably. We've got Come Together on here, which is funny to listen to because John lyrically is all over the place on the two versions of these songs. That he gets them wrong both times, but in different ways. This version for the evening concert has got the, should we call it the hairy arsehole version of Come Together, and that's also what's on the hybrid disc as well. So if you buy one of the smaller configurations of this, for example, if you just want the hybrid concert, that's the version that you're going to be getting on this, which I don't think is the version on the New York City album. I'm pretty sure of that. I checked that a couple of days ago. Mother is an interesting one on here. So the version of Mother from these concerts has been known for obviously a long time. For example, the Imagine film from the late 80s has got footage of John singing Mother. Well known, really good performance. Where else are you going to see John Lennon singing Mother live? I do feel on the evening concert that doing those screams at the end of the song probably damaged his voice a bit, because he seems to suffer vocally, for a few songs afterwards on the evening concert. So I think whether he overdid it or not with the screams, I don't know. But we've got Born in a Prison, which comes fairly soon after. John's harmonies that he's doing with Yoko, he really struggles in the evening. Sounds really good in the afternoon concert, but his voice is so gravelly in the evening on that, and I think he's recovering from that screaming in Mother. The afternoon version is far better for that song. There's a song called Open Your Box, Yoko song. There's significant guitar differences between the afternoon version and the evening version. In the evening, I think the guitarist had found his wah-wah pedal that he wasn't using in the afternoon. It's much more wah-wah based is the guitar. It's a real groovy jam is this, I would say. Turn this one up loud and enjoy it, because it's not Yoko in full-on Yoko mode that I know can be a bit much for some people, but it's just a bit of a trip. I really enjoyed this one. Cold Turkey. This is a really good example, I think, of how the hybrid concert disc has been edited to be a bit more seamless, to be a bit more of a best of, because it's the afternoon show version that's used on the hybrid concert. But if you listen to the disc that is the afternoon concert, you hear it's a disastrous, aborted attempt at the intro to Cold Turkey. The last 2 or 3 seconds, the timing's all out, nobody's playing at the same point as anybody else, and it all breaks down. And then they start up again, and when they start up again, that's when you hear it in the hybrid concert. You might be intrigued by a track called Law and Order that's on the track list. So I'll let you know there. It's not a song so much, but it's more Yoko reciting a monologue, a very political monologue, because obviously of the times that they were in, over quite a groovy jam. If you think of something like The Revolution Will Not Be Televised by Gil Scott-Heron, it's that kind of a thing. So that's you'll only find that on the evening concert. It's not on the afternoon one. So therefore you won't find it. I don't think you find it on the... Oh, you do find it on the hybrid disc. Yes, it is there. You've then got... It finishes with Give Peace a Chance, which was only performed in the evening, and it is on the hybrid concert. It's a long jam of Give Peace a Chance. If I'm going to be completely honest, I never need to hear that again. It's 10.5 minutes long. Personally, I've never been a fan of that song anyway. In any of its formats. So I'm probably not going to play the Give Peace a Chance very often because I find it difficult. If you like Give Peace a Chance, great groovy version. So overall, for the one-to-one concerts, each show's got a very unique feel to it. I think even in terms of the sound of it, I think often the evening show sounds like a brighter recording, more trebly, whereas it's probably lacking a bit in the treble on the afternoon concerts. The band played so much better in the afternoon. I'm including John in that as a whole, the afternoon show was so much better than the evening show. And I think that's borne out by, I had a look at, of the 14 songs that they played, that were played in both and appear on the hybrid disc, 10 of them are from the afternoon show. And I think that sort of shows a true reflection of the fact that the afternoon show was way better. The evening show's 77 minutes long, so it would only just fit on a CD. So again, I know there's been things said about the fact that there's a couple of tracks not on there. Okay, Sisters Oh Sisters is one of them. We all know what the other one is. If they'd have put Sisters Oh Sisters on here, you would have needed a second disc. We'd have all had to pay for that. So would you want to pay extra for that? What I will tell you as we go through this, there is plenty of versions of Sister Oh Sister on this box set. I didn't come away feeling like I was lacking in that song being represented. It's all over the place in this box set. So these mixers for the one-to-one concerts are so much better than the 1986 versions. They sound, in comparison, like they were recorded in a tin shed. I've played them out. I've switched between the two versions, and it's very, very noticeable. They've done a really, really good job at making these concerts sound as good as they can sound, better than you've heard them before. If you've seen any of the, there's a couple of clips on YouTube that the John Lennon account have put on where they've that's got the remastered audio plus the video, which looks great. Look forward to hopefully a release of that next year as a full audio and visual concert. But if you've heard those, you should be able to hear how much these sound better than what you've had in the past. So that's the one-to-one concerts taking up those first 3 discs. Yeah, we're only 3 discs in. Strap yourselves in, folks. Hit pause. Go and grab yourself a drink if you need to. And we'll continue. Disc 4. So this is the ultimate mixers of those songs from Sometime in New York City. Now, they're very, very deliberately here not called this an ultimate mix of the Sometime in New York City album. They can't do, because there's a song that, with the way that the world is today, they would get crucified. There's a word that got John into trouble. If they re-released it, they couldn't do it, and I've come to peace with that. I accept that now. Of course, I wish it was here, but it isn't. They couldn't do it. So we've got ultimate mixers of every other song from the Sometime in New York City album. And I think this is probably a good point to just mention about the fact that this is obviously different to the previous box sets. The previous box sets focused on an album, a studio album, and gave us a clue as to what was going on in the same time period. This clearly isn't. So this hasn't been, if this had been described as an ultimate mix box set of Sometime in New York City, that would be misleading. So 1972, this is just my opinion here on this. 1972 is probably the most interesting year in the 70s of John. There was so much going on. We've seen that with the one-to-one film that came out a few months ago that was in cinemas, which was really worth watching if you've not seen it. With the Daytime Revolution stuff, where they're appearing on the Mike Douglas TV show. All these things that were going on, it was such an interesting year. And I think it has given them the opportunity to say, well, actually, let's do a box set that focuses on a really interesting period that happens to have a studio album attached to it in the same period. Now, there's no getting away from the fact Sometime in New York City is not one of John's better received albums. It's been critically panned, it didn't sell great. I've said for years, there's videos going back several years on this channel where I've said I've always enjoyed a lot of the songs on this album, but a lot of people don't. And I think had it not been slagged off for 50 years, we might have got a Sometime in New York City box set. But you know, it has been slagged off for years. So there's a lot in here relating to that album, but it's been done under a banner of what could be argued to be potentially his most interesting period during the 70s. That's opinion again. So in some ways it's a very different box set, but now it gets to ultimate mixers. We've now got something that's akin to what we've seen in previous box sets. It's worth pointing out that for the original versions of the songs that we have in this box set, the original versions on the original album took up 39 minutes. In this box set, those same songs, 42 minutes. We've got an extra 3 minutes here. So because it's not being marketed as an ultimate mix of Sometime in New York City, it's been described as a reimagining, there's a bit more license here to give us, for example, longer takes where they exist, for them to include John's intros to songs, as we'll see as we go through. So I've tried to highlight where those particular differences occur here as I've gone through it. So this is a new listen at the album, not just in terms of sound quality, but in terms of having bits at the end and at the start that you've not had before. So the extra length is mainly due to Sunday Bloody Sunday and John Sinclair. They're the ones that give us the real extra length. In this box set, this is relevant to what I'm going to talk about with the Ultimate Mixers. In this box set, there's no raw studio mixers as we've had in the previous boxes. When you listen to the Ultimate Mixers here, I think it suddenly dawned on me why. You don't really need them, because these Ultimate Mixers essentially, to me, feel like that's what they are. You feel like you are in the studio. Now, Sometime in New York City, despite the fact that I enjoy that album, I've always said again, the mix is awful. It's very muddy, it's very congested. There's a lot going on in there that you can tell is there, but it's buried and hidden by other things. This just opens everything out. You feel like you are in that studio with John Lennon, and like them or not, Elephant's Memory Band get a lot of stick from some people. They are a very good rock and roll band, and they're in there in that studio. You're in there with them, and these sound like raw studio mixers. So we've got, again, going through some of the main songs. What they've done is they've moved New York City to the start of the album here. Again, you know, it's not intended as a re-release of that original album, so there's a little bit more license here. Sounds fresh, it sounds clean, it sounds like a really good rock and roll version of that song. Sunday Bloody Sunday. Now, I compared the intros of this song to the original mix. This sounds so much better now. But there is going to be some controversy here. The sax at the beginning of the song has been edited out. That's a decision that's been made for whatever reason I do not know. But another thing I can tell you from the one-to-one concerts and from a lot of the stuff that's to come that I haven't talked about yet, you ain't short a saxophone in this box set. Goodness me. There's so much of it. John even makes a comment about it, which I'll come on to at some point. So the sax intro is omitted, but it's still there in the middle of the song. There's like a sax solo in the middle. That's still there. The extended length of this song is mainly due to an extended outro repeat of the Sunday Bloody Sunday chorus. But it sort of gets a bit more intense. A bit like how Hey Jude repeats and changes each time. This is changing each time. You've then got Look of the Irish. And now I've had a bit of an interesting relationship with this song recently, because I've always fairly disliked this song. I like it a lot more with what I've been listening to lately in this box set, and I've replaced my lack of appreciation for another song that we'll come on to. But Look of the Irish, we've got John's intro counting, which you've not had before, okay? And no flute at the start. So again, I think, is it because the flute was an overdub later on? This is me speculating now. And they've decided to go with, no, this is what was played in the studio on the day. I'm not sure, but that's my feeling for that. The fidelity is so much better on this than it was in the original mix, which was really reverby. The strings that come in later were lower in the mix on the original version. They've been raised here, so you get a much better appreciation for the strings, as you will do later on. I'm going to talk about with the Elements mixers. There's a lot of really lovely strings going on in this album that have never really been allowed to shine until now. So yeah, I'm getting the hang of Luck of the Irish as a song. It does lead me into a thought that I've had listening to this, that with songs like that, and with Born in a Prison and Angela, I'd never really realised how much this album is like a folk album as well as a rock and roll album. But it really does feel like a folk album now, which is, I've got a lot of folk music, and I'm now sort of thinking of this album along those lines as well, which I hadn't done before. John Sinclair, always been one of my favourite songs on this album. John's Counting is included again at the start of this. And again, this sounds like a raw studio mix. You're right in there, right in with the musicians. John's voice is a lot clearer in the mix than it used to be. And we've got an extended instrumental outro at the end of this that adds another minute or so onto the song. But John Sinclair probably sounded one of the better sounding songs on the original album, so the step up in quality is there, not as noticeable as on some of the others that really needed it. Angela, immediately the slide guitar at the beginning that was always there is much more prominent in this mix, and that's nice. The difference in quality between the old and the new mixers is huge here. The original sounds tinny and dull when you go back to it. I'm referring to during that They Gave You Sunshine section of the song. It's much more natural here. It sounds so much better. Where All Water is the last song that I really wanted to pick out from the Ultimate Mixers. Always been a song that I've really enjoyed. It's just a lot of fun. The original mix has always been a lot of fun. Again, when you compare it now to this, the original mix sounds like it could have been recorded in a concert hall. Just sort of very big sound to it. It sounds like it could have been a live concert recording, even though we know it wasn't. In this version, you are bang, no reverb, you are in the studio with them. It sounds so much different, a lot more intimate, but really good. Overall, for those Ultimate Mixers, I think this is a very different approach, as I've said, to previous Ultimate Mixers. For good reason. It's not designed as, here's the album and we've cleaned it up. It's a new look at the album. It's a reimagining look at it. You've still got the original album there if you want it. But this has got so much more fidelity to it now. The team that have worked on it have done really well. Some previous Ultimate Mixers, there's been comments about boomy bass, and I've made those comments as well. I haven't noticed that yet with this. I still need to listen in some additional environments. I've listened to a lot of this through headphones. I've listened to a lot of it in the car. I haven't listened to all of it through every different sort of combination. So that may come, but so far I'm not really hearing that boomy bass that's been mentioned about previous mixers. So the bottom line is, you've never heard these songs sound this good. So I would really recommend that you have a good listen to these songs presented in this way. Really good. Disc 5 then is the Evolution mixers. So that we've had these in previous box sets. It shows, for each song it shows an evolution. This is how it started, maybe a home demo. This is an early version in the studio. This is a later version in the studio. A bit like they did for Strawberry Fields Forever in the Beatles anthology. So I'm going to pick out some of the highlights for that. So you're hearing John in the studio working on the songs, marshalling the band, and just being the John that we know from the Beatles. And we're hearing that even though he's in 1972 in his really political period, he's just John having a laugh and a joke and trying to get the band to do the songs. Sunday Bloody Sunday is probably my favourite of these Evolution mixers. There's a good couple of phrases in here, or not phrases, but things that John shouts out. He's trying to tell the saxophone player Stan Bronstein to not to give it everything during the run-throughs, because he's having to blow really hard, and it's harder work for him than it is for somebody on guitar or bass. And he does say, but anyone daft enough to decide to play saxophone deserves torturing, is what he says. So you maybe get a bit of an idea of what John thought about saxophone players, but it's all over this album, even though I've mentioned there's like a couple of little bits and pieces where it's been edited out. He also says during Sunday Bloody Sunday, it's taking a while for him to go through it, and he says, "Come on, I want to get onto that female lib song before McCartney gets onto that. Way! I'm sorry, Paul, it's all over now." And I love this because it really takes you into that time period of early 1972 where John and Paul had been slagging each other off and copying bits of songs and putting answers to songs in each other's songs. And they'd decided, I think it was right at the end of February 1972, they'd agreed with each other, let's not do that anymore. Let's not be slagging each other off in public. And from what I can gather from my research, I think these sessions were March 72, so they just had that agreement. So it was funny to hear John shouting that out in the studio. New York City, we hear a home demo of the song that's got very different lyrics at the start. It's not the song that it would become. And John's home demo was done very much in a sort of a Chuck Berry style, so that's interesting to hear. Angela, in between the versions that we hear in the Evolution mix, we hear an isolated string section. We actually hear a full version of that later on in the Elements mixes that I'll come on to, but that sounds really nice. So there's some of the highlights for me of the Evolution documentaries. Disc 6 then, studio jams. So this is as described. This is them in the studio jamming. So let's just have a look at something here. Disc 6. Yeah, so a lot of this is rock and roll, old rock and roll, 50s rock and roll. But it starts out with a track called Jazz Freak Out. It's under 2 minutes long, but it's just the band having basically a jazz freak out. It's like a John Coltrane bebop style. If you think of early 1960s or late 50s John Coltrane, it's very much that sound. But it's really noticeable listening to this how good a good jazz drummer is, because this has been played just with like a rock beat by a rock drummer, and it sounds very odd hearing jazz not with a proper jazz drummer. So that's quite an interesting listen. So there's loads of 50s rock and roll classics here, and they range in time from 40 seconds through to about 3 minutes long. They're not proper takes for release. I don't think they were ever designed as that, but they were just literally studio jams. Maybe there were things that they did. Could it be sort of first thing in the morning? Okay, let's just play a bit of Chuck Berry, or let's play a bit of Little Richard, Buddy Holly, that kind of thing, just to get the band warmed up. Maybe. That's my speculation as to where they fit. But the sax everywhere. You're almost going to be glad that you were spared it earlier on, because it's all over the place, is the sax on these studio jams. And hearing all these rock and roll songs with saxophone over them is an interesting listen. This is where I personally, again, this is going to be just my opinion, I don't think that the Elephants Memory Band were great at playing this sort of 50s rock and roll stuff. I think for sort of early 70s style rock and roll, but I have no problem with them for that. But were they the perfect band for 50s stuff? I'm not sure. Have a listen to it yourself, see what you think. They're good, but it all sounds a bit... the phrase that I wrote down here, it all sounds a bit Rydell High prom night. It sounds a bit like Grease. I love a bit of Grease, but, it does sound a little bit like that. John's rock and roll voice, though, is lifting it above all of that. And John's singing some of these songs really well. And he's properly going for it on some of these. They do sound good. Also on disc 6, at the end of those jams, is the Elements mixes. So these are the ones where they've done it in the previous boxes. They take an element. And on some of the boxes, it's been, well, let's take drum, bass and rhythm guitar and highlight that. Others, it's been a vocal and a piano or something like that. These are strings only. And I felt listening to this like that was a very deliberate decision, because there are some lovely string arrangements on the Sometime in New York City album that I think have been buried and we've not really been able to appreciate. You get to hear them here and realise. They did it on in the Imagine box for the song How. They did a strings only version and it was beautiful. And these sound really good as well. So you've got Sisters Oh Sisters, strings only. It reveals a really nice arrangement that they've got going on there. And it switches between, in the verses, it's very sort of calming and guiding. And then it goes, in the choruses, it goes more sort of sort of sweeping and grand and more stabby is the word that I wanted to use. I looked it up and I believe the actual phrase is called martele. That's a style of on the violin. Reminded me very much of Kate Bush Hounds of Love, the strings that are doing that style on there. So that was really nice. We've then got strings only of Born in a Prison. The strings are mainly playing the equivalent of backing chords. They're not really covering the melody of the song. But then there's like a cello as well that's sort of adding bass notes that gives it quite a Beatley tone. If you think of things like Eleanor Rigby or I Am the Walrus that have got cello in them, it gives it that bit of a quality, which was good. You've then got strings only version of Luck of the Irish. Now the first two, I didn't even have to look at the track list. It was obvious that I was listening to Sisters Oh Sisters and Born in a Prison. This one I had to look at the track list. It wasn't obvious to me that it was Luck of the Irish. Sounds almost regal, does this? I could imagine it being played at a grand sort of royal occasion, maybe in a church or a state banquet at Buckingham Palace, which then dawned on me is very ironic considering the subject of the song. Yeah. Angela, strings only version, very reserved strings in the verses, builds up to be much more sort of attacking and powerful in the choruses. But again, it's you're hearing that this was there that I've never really picked up on massively from listening to the original mix of the album. So it's really good to know that there was some very well thought out and played string sections going on in this album. But I think Sisters Oh Sisters was my favourite of those, definitely. Now, discs 7 and 8 are described as live jams. So Live Jam 1, which was CD 7, this is mainly the stuff that, you know, when you've got the second disc in Sometime in New York City album, the jams that were there, that played with Frank Zappa, for example, it's covering that kind of stuff. And the second disc is covering other events that John played live at. So these are massively historically important discs, I think, of these two, because unfortunately there's far too little of John Lennon as a live performer on his own out there in history. This attempts to capture most of that. There's some things not here that the Lennon estate didn't have the rights to, but when we look at this, 19 tracks over 2 discs, really historically important. You've got the UNICEF Lyceum Ballroom in London, 15th of December 69. You've got tracks from that. So technically, although he told the Beatles that he's left, technically, according to the world, he's still Beatle John at this point. You've got tracks with Frank Zappa at the Fillmore East, New York City, 6th of June 1971. Tracks from John Sinclair Freedom Rally in Michigan, 10th of December 71. Tracks from the Benefit for Victims and Families of Attic Estate, Harlem, New York City, 17th of December 1971. I love these because that's right in the period when I was born. So I'm listening to these thinking, you know, this is, within a few days, this is when I came into the world. So I like to listen to things from that period. We've got the songs from the David Frost TV show from the day before, 16th of December 71. That's in New York City. And then you've got tracks from the Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Telethon in New York City, 4th September 1972. So really historically important stuff for people who are wanting to study and go really deep into John Lennon's career. And yeah, as I say, it does make you realise we are very well served for live versions of Sisters Oh Sisters. I didn't feel shortchanged by the lack of it in the 1-to-1 CDs. It's all over this box set, is that song. You're not missing out on Sisters Oh Sisters. And the 9th disc is Home Jam. So it's 33 tracks. Most of them are under or just over a minute. I'm going to pick out some of the ones here that you might wonder what they are from the track list. The first one, Shazam, is basically just sort of John noodling on guitar and playing some little riffs. Most of these songs, it's John at home doing not much more than a guide vocal, so don't expect him to be blasting them out like he was on the earlier disc 6. Disc 6 that's got a lot of the old rock and roll tracks on. Much more reserved home jams. They're interesting curios is the word I would use here. probably not a disc that I would go back to often. I think if I want to listen to John singing rock and roll songs, there's probably other discs that I'm going to go to, other albums of his. And maybe an unfair comparison here, but it did make me think that when it comes to John doing those old rock and roll songs and Paul McCartney doing those songs, I think Paul had the edge over John on those. Controversial, perhaps. Let me know if you think that's an absolute load of nonsense. So yeah, disc 9 has got, if you want to hear John Lennon jamming old rock and roll songs, you are very, very well served on that disc. So that's the 9 discs, and yeah, they're repeated in high resolution, 5.1 surround, and Atmos mixers on the 3 Blu-rays. So whilst, yeah, this is a very different box set to the others, as I hope you can see as I've gone through it, it's also in many ways very, very similar, and it sits alongside those other boxes really, really well. We've got a couple of years to wait, I think now. There's been mention that the next one will be Walls and Bridges in 2027. Whether it's going to be October, as is usually the case with the John Lennon boxes, I don't know. Or whether it'll come early, but then hopefully we're back on track, and let's have all of the John Lennon albums receive this treatment, because I do say a lot of really nice things about these boxes, and ultimately the main reason is because they are doing it really well, these boxes, I think. The fact that, you know, Beatles fans are complaining like mad on the internet about the fact that they're not getting Blu-rays anymore with their super deluxe editions. They're carrying on with them here, and I just think they've been really, really well together put box sets. So yeah, I'm going to be listening to this a lot lately. Now, if you're watching this as I release this video, you're probably not going to have heard this, so you might not be able to comment on the songs and what they sound like. But let me know what your wishes are for this box set, what you're looking forward to, what you're not looking forward to. You know, give us it good and bad, whatever. I would love to hear from you. If you're going to watch this, as I know some people will after it's been released, some people want to wait until they've got the box set in their hands before they see things like this. Understand that completely. Let us know what you're enjoying about the set. But I will definitely be back in October once this box set's released with more videos on the subject, live streams, etc. There's some links down below if you want to order this box set. And thanks again for the team for sending me this so that I could show it to you and review it to give you an idea of what's in there. It's a very interesting box set, and I'm going to be having this book that's in here is going to be my next book to read, because I've just finished reading, finally, the Beatles Get Back book from 4 years ago. So I'm looking for a book to read. This is going to be it. Thank you very much for watching. Blimey, it's been a long video. I'll see you later. Thanks very much for watching.